All right. Well, I've had yet another convert, so I was going to talk about that a little bit. So, and I'm actually, oh yeah, there was another reason. So, about 21 or 22 of these have been sold now. I actually haven't checked the update. There's a link in the notes for those of you who want to buy one. It's got on Kindle and it's on, it's like paperback as well if you want. And you'll notice that it's a bit off center, which used to disturb me. And I thought, no, I'm going to fix that. But actually, I think I'm going to leave it like this because it's kind of gives you a little bit of a human flaw, you know. But the really cool thing is I've had, like I said, I think this is the fifth guy telling me, consider me converted now. And he's going to Latin Mass now and looking for a priest to, I think, baptize him. And he went to one of the proper Catholic churches where they do the Latin Mass. They reject Vatican II. In fact, he went to the church that wrote one of the priests wrote an article, which there's a link. If you go to the About page in Canon 188, there's a link there to this article that discusses Canon 188.4, and it's a really good article. So anyway, the thing is, not everybody's becoming a Catholic after they read this, obviously, but that's like 4 or 5 people out of 21, 22 books or whatever it is now that have been bought. That doesn't mean they've all been read. So that's a pretty good hit rate. I mean, it's interesting because I think there's something happening just generally around the world. There's been a recent pretty massive collapse of Protestant based churches and supposedly church leaders of the various Protestant denominations. And I think we're going to see more of that, and I had Dave, my friend Dave, who I've done a couple of videos with. He made a comment which I thought, dude, you're talking nonsense. He said, oh, well, people are leaving the Catholic Church in droves. No, that's not true. It says, or some like you are, not in communion with Rome anymore. No, again, this is, what's happening is people are leaving the Novus Ordo Church in droves. And as they leave the Novus Ordo Church, quite a lot of them are coming back to Catholicism, are discovering Catholicism, maybe for the first time, because they were churchians. Not everybody in the Novus Ordo Church is a Novus Orcian. Some of them are just deceived and fooled churchians, the Novus Ordo apostles, the Novus Ordo real believers are all Satanists. But not everybody who's in the Novus Ordo Church is actually, an orc. Some of them are just deceived people, lazy churchians who don't know their own religion. And as they see more and more of the Novus Ordo stuff, they leave that and then they question reality and truth, and quite a lot of them are finding their way back to actual Catholicism. Now, the fact that, my church is not in communion with Rome doesn't matter a fucking thing. Rome is not particularly special, neither is the Pope. The Pope's just another bishop, and it's not the first time that the Catholic Church has had no Pope. There's been more than 40 fake popes in the Catholic Church before the present era of the last 60 years, where we haven't had a single valid Pope. And even some of those popes that were valid were, they were like really sick, like human beings. Which is sort of irrelevant because, the Pope had the ability to excommunicate you and so on, yeah. But the fact is we don't have a Pope. And Rome is filled with pederasts and satanic Novus Orcians. So that makes no difference. It doesn't affect Catholics. Catholics have been Catholics regardless from the beginning. So it's important to understand, who you are, who's leaving what. And there's a huge exodus from the Protestant churches. Now, the Catholic Church has always been attacked far more than any of the other churches. Why do you think that is? You don't get attacked if you're irrelevant. You don't get attacked as much if you're leading people down the garden path. You get attacked if you're leading people to the truth. So, in my mind, and there was another guy who, that little group I belonged to, there was a guy that saying, oh, it's getting harder, because of this exact situation. Saying, oh, it's getting harder as a Christian, the whole world's against you and it's harder to maintain your faith. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? It only gets easier. I mean, the older I get, the more I'm, the longer I'm Christian, the easier the burden of being Christian. It's like when I first became a Christian in my heart, before I baptized or anything, but when I first discovered God is real, I've described this before as the sensation was like I just barely got my one hand into a spike, into a rock wall, and there's a tornado blowing and I can't even get my other hand up. I'm literally just hanging on with everything I got to just this one spike. And that's what it felt like. I mean, there was a demonic oppression, attacks, all sorts of shit was going on, like vile stuff that I would have never been able to handle normally. I was managing to survive barely, and it was just like that's literally what it felt like for quite a long time. And then eventually, using every ounce of strength, I pulled myself up onto this rock, and it was like there's the cliff, and now I'm just holding onto this metal spike in the ground. And eventually, when I've got enough strength, I'm gonna spike another one in the ground. And over time, slowly, it felt like, okay, I've got like 4 spikes now. I'm tied down to this rock. Okay, now I can start to think to build a little tent, and then I can start to think to go a bit further away from the ledge. Now, the way I am now, I don't quite have a castle yet, but man, I've got my armor on and I'm walking. I'm far from the cliff now. You ain't gonna blow me off this cliff. There's still stuff coming at me, but it's like, I can start to cut some of it down now. And the intention is I'm going to build not just a castle, I'm going to build a citadel, and then I'm going to build a keep, and I'm going to build a city-state, and then bigger, So it just gets, and honestly, the burden of being Christian, what the hell is he talking about? So I just said, what nonsense are you spouting? And his comeback was, how long have you been a Christian? To which I replied, how is that relevant at all? Your implication is that the longer you're Christian, the weaker you get? What kind of a pussified churchin are you, And another guy sent me a private message saying, look, I didn't know how to explain this in the group, whatever, but just reading that exchange that you had just made me, I don't know why, I've never told this to anybody before, but it made me want to tell you that I've been feeling like there's a lot of attacks going on, and my faith is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger, and I can feel evil all around me. And like yourself, I'm just getting invigorated by it, because it's like, it's that old saying, right? You're surrounded by the enemy. Well, so what? It's a target-rich environment. Just pick a target and start firing, metaphorically, obviously. But so it's really an interesting time to be alive, and it's an interesting time to be a Christian. And there's going to be more and more people falling away. We're going to be persecuted more and more strongly, but that's kind of a good thing, because the ones that are left, that are real Christians, man, we're going to be like a proper Christian. And as far as the Catholics go, we're going to be proper Catholics. And look here, there's millions of them out there. There's millions of Catholics out there that are lost and that don't know, church and Catholics, lazy ones, deceived ones. Maybe some of them are not lazy, they just don't know. Nobody's ever told them. They have tried to read some books, but they're all from after 1958, so they think, but I'm going to go to the canon law, and they pick up the canon law of 1983. I mean, keep in mind, this whole deception from 1958 on, it's a very intelligent deception. It's not an easy thing. It's a very smart deception. It's driven by Satan, who's very intelligent, far more than any humans. So it's not unreasonable for people to get lost with it. But that's why I'm doing what I do. That's why I talk about it. That's why I wrote this little book, Believe. And probably that's why it's having such a big effect. So I'm going to put the link to the book in the notes. But what I really wanted to say was, if you're one of the people, because these were from comments on various videos, there was a couple of emails, but if you're one of the people that's converted or going to convert, or whether it's Orthodox Christianity or Catholicism, that doesn't matter to me. Just drop me an email. Okay, I'm not hard to find. Just go to the blog. I'll put a link to the blog as well, and there's contact pages there, whatever. Pop me an email and let me know. yeah, I'm converting, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep account. I just, I didn't think of doing it right away, but I think it's going to be interesting over time. And, if you enjoy the book, if you've converted, whatever, write me a review, put a review on. It's not for me. It's not, look, these things are selling for $9.99 and I get a couple of bucks out of it. And on Kindle, they're like, I think $6. And again, I get a couple of bucks a book. It's not, I'm not going to retire or make my riches on this. It's not about the money. It's about the fact that it's a useful book. And the more reviews it has, the more good reviews it has, the more other people can find it. That's how the algorithms work. So if you're a confirmed purchase, verified purchase, write me a review, so that other people can see it. And if you want to drop me an email, don't drop me long. Like one guy, and he's a good guy, I like him, whatever, but he sent me like 6-page emails. Dude, I don't have the time to go through all that. Just drop me a little paragraph, couple of lines, tell me, whatever you want to tell me. And if you want to tell me about the book, drop me a little line, just because I want to know how many people it's affecting. So there is a movement, there is an intention behind the things that I do. There is a strategy. And the strategy is there are millions, if not a billion plus, Catholics out there that are fooled. They're deceived. And they're at a loss. They're like sinking. Their ship is sinking. They're like, oh, where am I going? Why is this all so wrong? Why doesn't feel right? And this is what I'm here for, to tell you, look, this is the truth. That's why all that stuff feels wrong, because it is wrong, because it's satanic, because it's Novus Ordo. It's not Catholicism. Even Anne Barnhart on her latest blog put a little snippets of like interviews that she's done, and this lady has chopped it up into little interviews. And the very first one, she actually spells out, she actually says, people shouldn't get depressed and demoralized by the fact that the material church is all filled with pederasts and pedophiles and apostates, because the supernatural church still exists. The supernatural church is still there and valid and always will be. And she has now said the very same words of the Father Legernier. I want to pronounce his name right, and I can never remember to write it down before I start these things. But anyway, the Benedictine monk who wrote a very lengthy explanation of why the popes are fake popes, because Vatican II is heretic, Canon 188. I've told this many times. So if you want to know the details, if you're new, look at my video number 1. Just look on my videos, look at video number 1, watch that video. It's like 9 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. And if you want to read it, go to canon188.com, and in there, on the About page, you've got all the links to all the stuff that explains everything. So, she actually said the very same thing. So she differentiated between the material possession of an office and the supernatural possession of an office. But now she's just a hairbreadth away from saying exactly what, Catholics have been saying all this time. And I'm like, Anne, aren't you seeing this? And the other thing is, in our podcast 86, she said, if you're going to debate me, if you're going to have a logical argument, reasonable argument, then go ahead, I'll talk with you, I'll argue with you. But that's not the case, because I've sent her relatively polite emails. I didn't, I wasn't one of those sedevacantists that attacked her, called her a whore or some other horrible shit. I didn't do any of that. But she is in error, and I did say that. I said, I believe you're in error, and this is the links and whatever. And she's never responded. I believe she's never responded because, like I've explained before, Anne is a girl, and she is emotional about it, and she's a nurturing, feminine woman that is trying her best, and she just can't deal with the fact that most of the Catholic Church has actually been infiltrated and taken over by Novus Orcans. But she might come around yet, because she's definitely a seeker of the truth. She definitely has done a lot of good for Catholics. She is absolutely and completely wrong about Ratzinger being the real Pope. Ratzinger was one of the architects of Vatican II, and therefore he's an arch heretic, just like Bergoglio and all the other popes before them, from 1958, October 28th of 1958. We've only had fake popes. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, to mention that, and spread the word, because it is helping people. Now, even if it's not affecting you, even if it's not converted you, that's fine, that's okay. But if 5 out of 20 odd purchases lead to conversion to Christianity, even if you're agnostic, you should see the benefit of that. If you've watched this channel, if you listen to Vox or Owen or so on, you should have understood by now that Christianity created the most positive, the best civilization in the entire history of mankind. So, that's kind of what you want. That came about from true believing, pious Catholics, for the very most part. The Orthodox did a little bit, but again, that's another thing that no one has an answer for. The Protestant get very upset when I mention that. Listen, first of all, your fat German who just wanted to have sex with nuns, and the idiot king that wanted to murder, divorce his wives, came along, 1,500 years after the Bible had already been put together and whatever, and then they changed it. You've got no argument for that. And then it's interpret as thou wilt. That's the whole of the law. That's the whole of the Protestant law. I came up with that. Interpret as thou wilt is the whole of the law, and that's satanic. Satan's law is do as thou wilt. That's it. That's the whole of the law, of Satan's law. And that's exactly what Protestants do. It's interpret as thou wilt. That's it. Sola Scriptura is retarded, because the Bible was put together only 300 years after the ascendancy of Christ. So how did the Bible get put together? Well, by tradition. So now you're telling me that only the scripture is valid, but with only the scripture there would be no scripture. And then you promptly immediately change the scripture because, the book of James kind of upsets you because it goes against all the crap that you want to do and say. The church is not there for you to interpret as an individual human being. The church has rules, and they're all written down as far as the Catholics are concerned. The Orthodox are a little bit more mystic. They can dodge around it, which is why I'm Catholic. And also, the other thing that also upsets a little bit the Orthodox too, which is like, listen, what are your fruits? What did you guys do? You didn't stop the Saracens. In fact, you had to come from across the sea and kick the Saracens' ass for you a few times. And the Orthodox go like, well, you Catholics, you sacked Constantinople. Yeah, but I think, unless I'm wrong, I still have to read this book, and I'll correct myself if I am wrong. But if I remember right, I think it's the Fourth Crusade where they sacked Constantinople. And keep in mind that in the First Crusade, the Byzantine emperor basically said, yeah, you guys go fight the Muslims, but you're not going to keep anything. He kind of did a little switcheroo. It was like, well, yeah, you can keep the lands, but then no, you can't keep the lands, they're my lands. So you basically come there, you walk there with your whole family, your friends, your mates, your sons and daughters die on the trip, get attacked and whatever. You kick the ass of the Saracens all the way back to Jerusalem, and then the Byzantine emperor says, yeah, thanks, you can go back now. Yeah, no. And you have to do that 1, 2, 3. Yeah, by the 4th time, they probably said, listen, fucker, what are you doing? You're doing nothing. We'll take it over, and then, we'll redo it. And I'm not, there's always going to be that sort of stuff. So, but the fact is, it wasn't the Orthodox that stopped the Muslims from destroying Christendom. It was Catholics. It was the Catholic Knights of Malta. It was the Catholics at all the major fights that stopped the Muslims. Charles Martel, Charlie the Hammer, as I like to call him, who started the Reconquista, he wasn't Orthodox. They're all Catholics. It was only Catholics. That's what they did. All the doctors of the church, Saint Aquinas, Thomas Aquinas, Augustine, you might like some more than others, whatever. But, these guys were deep thinkers, deep philosophers. They progressed human achievement. It was Catholics that stopped slavery. It was Catholics that gave women an esteemed position in the family and a respected position in the family as mothers and wives. It's Catholics that essentially created Western civilization, whether you like it or not. And again, no one has an answer for that. So the Catholics did all the stuff, and then they get attacked the most. They get infiltrated the most. I mean, the only purpose of the Illuminati and Freemasons, which are essentially the same thing, the Luciferians, is to destroy Catholicism. And they did that over centuries. And the first thing that they tried to destroy, and they did successfully, was the sovereignty of kings. They destroyed royalty all over Europe. They destroyed all royalty. Why? Because the kings were considered to be divinely, they were kings by divine empowerment, by divine right. And kingdoms, yeah, if you got a crazy king, it's kind of bad. But the thing is, the kingdoms actually functioned historically certainly better than our demonocracy that we've got, which was all created by Freemasons. There are some really interesting books. I've just finished reading a book in Italian, which the people that don't want to believe are gonna say, oh, it's a fake, it's whatever. It's called L'Eletta del Dragone in Italian. The original was written in French. And it's the story of Clotilde Bersone, who was an Italian woman who basically became essentially the nymph, the Satan's nymph of the Freemasons, of the lodges of the Freemasons. And she names names, and right at the end of it, she got pregnant, so she ran off to a monastery, to a nunnery, and took the vows and became Christian to try and save her child. Her child unfortunately died in childbirth, probably as a result of the many vicious, evil things that she did. Maybe it was a better thing that the child did not survive, but was baptized. The child was baptized before dying. And then she was kidnapped back to one of these secret lodges and apparently crucified by the Satanists. She was intimately involved with Garfield, the President of the United States, who was assassinated. And it's very interesting. So you can say that this book is all fiction, but it's not. It's not fiction. The diaries that she wrote were transcribed into this, and it was dictated by a bishop, I think, to another priest. And it was dictated because they did not want to write it down by hand with a signature, because they thought, if we do this and we put our name to it as priests, anybody who reads it is going to say that, oh, it's just propaganda of the church, because the Freemasons became very powerful. So you can discredit this by saying, oh, it's fiction. You can say it's fiction, all right? But it's not. There's a lot of information in here. A lot of people are named, not all of them, but quite a few of them. And if you look at how Garfield was assassinated and why, it doesn't really make any sense. Well, this does make sense. Sorry, I'm just uploading another video. One of the guys on one of the comments asked for the UFO video, if I could upload it, because I thought I'd uploaded it before on the blog, but it was actually just a photograph. So I have uploaded it. It's very degraded. It's not going to be great, to watch, but it's got a couple of notes in the notes section of the UFO video, number 54. This one's going to be number 55. And I think I'm going to keep it short. That's it. I'm under half an hour. But, again, spread the word. We want people to become proper Christians. And, I personally, obviously, rooting for the Catholics, so proper Catholics. But, if you're going to be Orthodox instead of Catholic, whatever, just... I believe that Catholics are closer to the truth, and I think there's quite a lot of evidence for that. But, if it's whatever, if you choose to go Orthodox, that's fine. Just stay away from churchanity, like Protestantism is churchanity writ large. Don't bother arguing with me like the idiot. I left him as an example, the moron, the KJW, King James Version only. Like Jesus spoke in the Old English. He made some cretinous comment, and before I could reply, a couple of other guys said, like, what, Aaron, what stupid nonsense, and one of the guys that replied wasn't even, he said, I wasn't even Christian, but like listening to the Kurgan, I think I'm going to convert now, and it's like, don't you even have the humility to look a little bit into the history of the church? You're spouting such rubbish. So it's working, people are starting to maybe all they needed is a little bit of information, you know. So yeah, let people know. I tried to. I was very briefly on the live stream with Owen, and I sent a message, and I was gonna send him another one, and then I got busy because, you know, the baby, and I had a lady come over. Just all happened all at once, and so I didn't manage to send him a message that he saw, I don't think. But I know there are some bears out there that have got good contacts with him. So, you know, let him know that there's a blood feud out, that Vox has said he would moderate it, or, you know, I'm happy to go on Owen's channel if he wants. And, you know, it's a blood feud, but I think we could make it quite pleasant and quite fun and quite interesting for everybody. So yeah, if I do believe Owen said he would live stream with me if I was up to it or whatever. So yeah, I'm here, Big Bear. You know, let me know when and where or whatever. I think you've got my details because I wrote you, and I don't know, maybe you lost a letter or whatever. I'm sure the bears can let you know how to find me. So drop me an email, a comment, whatever, and I'll get back to you if that's what you want to do. That'd be good. It would be helpful. And given, like I said, that, you know, so many people are being converted by this little book, it'd probably be a good idea to give this thing a shout out, if nothing else. You know, even if you want to go hard at me for being right about the moon, that's fine. But maybe it's worthwhile to let people know that there is some information out there that might help them on the path to Christianity. Okay, that's it for tonight. I'm under half an hour. I'm getting better at this. Good night.